first note I wrote down about this album and is become the overarching part of it is that Jack Harlow's artistry is now surpassing his body. Like his artistic idea, Monica, just purely intellectually and like as a concept, is actually good. Like I will say that. I will say that out loud. His body cannot produce the vocals
that are needed
for the song.
Good afternoon, beautiful people. This is another episode of Album Mode. We review a new album every single week. We look at the lyrics, the production, the overall aesthetic of the album, and how the album fits into the context of that artist's career. For everyone watching on YouTube, we thank you. We appreciate you. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to us, and leave us a comment. Let us know how wrong we always are. My name is Adriel Smiley, aka Champion Scribe. We're here like we are every single week with His Royal Highness, aka the Bunny, aka No Longer a Munch, aka Green Goblin, King Grant.
What's happening, people? We're back. This time it's with Jack Harlow and Monica. Maybe he named it Monica just so he can get that type of wordsmanship. It's just, oh, Jack Harlow and Monica. Wow. It's crazy. Jack Harlow and Monica showing up.
Possibly.
But yes, Jack Harlow, Monica, Jack Harlow, rapper, melodic rapper, singer, artist that we have been covering since Jackman days.
Before Jackman, we covered Come Home, the Kids Miss You in 2022.
Oh, I forgot about that.
That was our first Jack Harlow review. The thing I thought about when going back in time, because Jack Harlow has now become this big star. He's such a big celebrity that people, do forget that he was underground putting out mixtapes for years.
Mm-hmm.
And, if he didn't have that kind of big, I guess, push or a big hit in 2020, we probably would not be ever doing a Jack Harlow review. The artist that he was before that big hit was not an artist we would have done a review of. So very interesting to see where he's like kind of come into a space now. We review everything that he does.
Mm-hmm.
May 2022, Come Home, the Kids Miss You. I would say his breakout project, following the success of What's Poppin' and Tyler Hero. Do you remember the score that you gave it? I gave it actually a little bit of a higher score than you did. Do you remember the score you gave it?
It felt very five-ish to me. Very five-ish. 5.
You gave it a 6.
Okay.
I gave it a 6.5. So you're right. We're in that same kind of just a little bit above average spot. Before we talk about Jackman, which is an album that we both really liked a lot.
You loved it.
You actually gave it a higher score than me. So I
think spiritually you loved it more than me.
Spiritually, for sure. For sure. But what's interesting about Come Home, the Kids Miss You is that, What's Poppin' was such a big hit. So is Tyler Hero, that he was known as like the quintessential pop rapper. There was the Drake comparisons. He had these 2 big hits. So Come Home, the Kids Miss You was definitely like his pop rap album. Let me show you the hits, show you that I can do this. What I've compared it to is like ASAP's first album and ASAP's second album. ASAP's first album had songs like Fucking Problems, Goldie, Wild for the Night. Let you know I'm here and I'm a hit maker. The next album, At Long Last ASAP, more of those kind of underground posse cut type of tracks. So that's what Jackman was for Jack Harlow to me. May of 2023. Before I ask you what your score was, it had the title from the Album Mode podcast of being a no skips.
Wow.
So do you remember what you gave that album?
I want to say I gave it a 9. I think that was a 9.
That's correct. You gave it a 9. I gave it an 8. Yeah, an album we both liked a lot, and an album that we thought didn't get enough credit for how good it was. And I've been thinking about that, in terms of where we're at now with Jack Harlow, because I think that the pop star that he was reigned supreme. Mm-hmm. People could not get that artist, that person out of their head, because I think, again, I said this on that review, and I still feel the same way. If Jackman had come before Come Home, the Kids Miss You, totally different energy.
Okay.
But I think Jackman went completely under the radar for that reason.
I agree. I think Jackman is I think Jackman was one of the best rap albums of the 2020s. I still think it's that I still think that way. I just think that because when you're an artist, particularly like a pop artist, he's bordering rap, pop space. Um, the albums, like it feels like the albums are only as official as the hit song. So like a song like Jackman doesn't get recognition because there is no hit song on it, right? But you go back, Come Home, the Kids Miss You, then there's, First Class and even Nail Tech, right? You're like, oh, that was canonized, right? And I think that the people that you draw when you're making a pop rap album or a pop album, they're there for the pop songs, the pop elements. They're there for the expansive grapple of the pop sphere. So when you make something that is more genre specific, like Jackman, and it doesn't have any sort of hit song on it, then the masses overlook it because they're just like, "Where's the single?" Right? Where then there's people like us who are looking at it and be like, "Oh, let's dig in. Well, actually, it's quite tasty. It's quite tasty over here." So, I do think Jackman's underrated. I think that Jack Harlow as a songwriter is definitely something that's kind of overlooked in his discography. So yeah, Jackman still love it. And that's why I kind of had I want to say an upwards look when it came to Monica coming out because I was like, okay, well, if it's gonna be Jackman-ish, I think we're talking about some serious work here. I don't know if it's gonna pop like the previous albums did, but to leading up to it, I'm like, okay, there might actually be some action here.
I think the thing that surprised me about that whole time period is that I thought that he was almost too new of an artist to the masses to kind of get painted with that label of no hit single, we don't even care.
Hmm.
But like you said, no hit single on Jackman and basically was totally ignored. The interesting thing that he did, which rarely happens from an artist in any genre, is a few months later he drops Lovin' on Me, which is his biggest solo record, was a huge hit, over 1 billion streams on Spotify. And I think that kind of kept him in the zeitgeist for that time. Now, There's No Lovin' on Me is just Jackman. Maybe this whole album is a whole different project. But I think him putting out that single, having it being a smash hit as a Lucy single,
I
we
know.
talked about him as the next Drake. That's some Drake stuff. That is
Hmm.
Drake stuff. As I got this loose single, here, take it. It's not attached to anything. It's not part of an album. You know, Drake, Cardi B, these are the artists that do that kind of thing.
Right.
So I think that cemented him more as this hit maker, top of the pop charts type of artist, into what we get now here with Monica. Two things I want to mention before we get into Monica. I gotta get off some of these jokes. Okay, there's
Oh yeah.
been all these jokes, all these names that they're calling Jack Harlow. I'm gonna list a bunch of them that I've seen on Twitter. Okay, and then we're gonna move on. Okay, we're gonna
Okay.
name them, then we're gonna move on. Okay, Lint Condition,
Mm,
Neo-Colonial Soul,
mm.
Music Stole Child, Ninth Wonder Bread,
Oh
Charlie
my.
Kirk Franklin,
Okay.
Most Definitely Not,
Hmm.
Luca Vandross,
I like that.
Uncommon,
Oh,
White Thought,
okay.
LL Cool Whip, Ghostface Vanilla.
Okay.
So these are the jokes going
Oh,
on for Jack Harlow.
you're missing one of the best ones. Massa
What?
P.
Master P or Black Harlow, that's another one that's
Black
going
Harlow.
around. That's all. Um, these jokes have been good. The internet is interneting. But before we get into, I want to get those off because I think the conversation on this album has been a little bit toxic.
Hmm.
Because usually when a white rapper strays away from what they've done before, we hate it. We say, "Oh, they used us. MGK's making rock. Post Malone is making country." So for an artist to kind of not do that, you thought they would be celebrated.
Right.
Nope, can't please any of the people any of the time.
Yeah, I remember in I think it was his Popcast interview where he's like, I just got more blacker. Um which I find
That
hilarious.
soundbite traveled traveled quickly.
Obviously he was being facetious about it to a degree. To a degree. He kind of actually low key kind of meant it, but not in an actual way. Like, you know what I mean? He meant it in his musical sound. And that's, I think, important part of Monica, where he has he is eschewed hip hop in a pretty drastic way when it comes to Monica. I think it's just like neo soul light. Feels like D'Angelo light to me.
Yeah, it feels like a diet neo soul album. That's what I've been calling it. To people who are asking about it. The
Hmm.
two things that I think that are so interesting is he had said he had a whole different project that he scrapped.
Yeah.
He was working on it for 2 years and totally scrapped it. From what he says, it sounds like it was more in the Jackman route. So I would love to hear that still. Jack, don't destroy it completely. Bring it back at some point. We want to hear more of that sound. Um, and then he had these four rules, which he talks about in terms of making the album. I thought these were interesting because I've always thought the relationship with an artist on the internet in this last half decade has always piqued my interest. And I mentioned this to you, on the podcast, not the podcast about Tommy Richmond
Hmm.
and how he quote unquote came out of nowhere. And I mentioned this before that Tommy Richmond's people actually reached out to me to come on my radio show before any of those songs were out. So
Right.
I was one of the rare people that just knew about him from before. But then it doesn't work like that. Wherever I hear you is when you just came out. I don't care
Hmm.
what you did before that. Doesn't matter to me. Jack Harlow was along those same lines. And I think that he's one of those artists who he's been such a pop, star that people only see him, the masses, when he steps into the light. What he does outside of that time doesn't matter. Now, I knew Jack Harlow from him being tied to DJ Drama. Now, I
Hmm.
learned a couple years ago that a lot of people didn't know what DJ Drama was through Tyler the Creator. So I'm learning a bunch of things for the first time. But he's been dressing like Neo Soul for almost 2 years, is the point I'm making.
Right.
So for Jack Harlow to come out and make this album, doesn't surprise me in a sense because he was wearing these, neo soul boom bap hats for a long time, and I'm like, where are you getting this hat from? Do they even sell these anymore? So he's been kind of giving us the preview of that for a few years, but this somehow came as a surprise. His four rules for this album on Monica, he said, no swearing, no rapping, only live instruments other than some programmed drums, and no braggadocio. Those were his four rules. Now we're going to assess if those rules actually came through and he actually did that. But I
Hmm.
think it's best we start with the production because that is the biggest surprise from everyone on here. I want to mention one of your people, okay, to start this off. I had to put this in here because this is like a Démar sprinkle, okay?
Okay.
Axel Arvid, executive producer of Pink Pantherist sophomore mixtape Fancy
Oh.
That. He's all over this project. And
Yeah.
Jack mentions him as one of the people he reached out to first when trying to craft this sound. For those who are unaware, he's worked with Amine, Pink Pantherist, Zara Larson, but he's all over this project.
Yeah, that's kind of surprising to hear because the artists, except for Amini that you mentioned, big, expansive electronic artists. So to be
Even
like,
even Amine has Charmander and those kind of sounds that, go in
yeah.
that direction.
So it's kind of surprising for that to be the case and this album to spit out of it. I think that that's the production is, I would say like the production. I think that this style of, again, neo soul, and I think it's like a very old version of neo soul. Like if you compare it to like what's happening today, it's a little bit more antiquated, which is fine. But it was definitely interesting in that frame because you think of like a song like even a song like Trading Places was the first song. It's very much like almost like prowling, walking in the, walking around in New York and it's, maybe like 7 p.m. or something like that. I definitely like there's definitely an atmosphere that is generated by this production. Like I definitely felt like I was in a space with him. What that space was, I am unsure of, but I know somebody's playing an acoustic guitar in it. You know what I mean? Like I think that that has been something that has been I think is good on this album. Like even on All My Friends, I like the acoustic guitar. Not really an acoustic guitar person, as I
Mhm.
think is known on this podcast and in my regular
Yes,
life.
yes.
I think that it works well for him. I think the situation that he really pays for in his music is his singing. I think that's what I think it comes down to.
You took the words right out of my mouth. Like that is really the problem with this project. Because the
Hmm.
production, I think, is actually well done. You talked about trading places. This tempo is probably the perfect mix he has for this pseudo rap thing, sing thing that he does.
Hmm.
Trading places is the tempo for that. No, absolutely. But I think there's a part where we've talked many times about whether it's a rapper or just a singer-songwriter who doesn't have that vocal range and that vocal strength, that power in their voice. Jack Harlow, we got to put him at the top of that list.
Yeah.
Okay, nowhere in the past did we talk about, oh, this singing thing he does is interesting. Let's hear more of that.
Yeah.
Like, if we did a draft of rappers we want to do here a Neo Soul album from, how low would he be on that list? We would have brought up Smino. We would have brought up a ton of guys
Yeah.
before we brought up Jack Harlow. So I think that is the one issue here. And I want to go back to what we said last week about Harry Styles, where the listener may not be aware of this style of music.
Hmm.
The amount of people who told me this week that they are new to neo soul or don't listen to neo soul or aren't familiar with neo soul blew my mind completely. So
Yeah, but it's a very
Harry,
go ahead. It's like a
no,
super black form. Like
a
super
super
black.
super black form, but the internet will have us believe that we all love neo soul. I bet tell you how many influencers you see with the Lauryn Hill D'Angelo combo on their wall.
Right.
The internet would have us believe that everyone listens to neo soul, and I,
Okay.
I always thought that was cap. This is kind of the proof of
Yeah.
that. But
No.
why I mentioned that is, how many Jack Harlow fans do you think are familiar with neo soul?
It's got to be less than 5%. Like I think it's really, 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 really low because you got to think of his demographic, like his fan base demo. Um, Probably white. There's definitely black women that follow him, so I
Hmm.
guess that's where my
Yep.
5% is coming from. Um, but young, like millennial white girls, that's a rarity. And then or did I say millennial? I said Gen Z white girls, and Gen Z like white guys. I doubt it. Like I just don't think that is on the radar. I
And that's
Yeah,
why I think this works in a
that's
sense
why you think
because
it works. You know what I think about this album when I listen to it? I think about
mhm,
when we were talking about Harry Styles on our previous review, where I would say that it's in the same space as like this is kind of centrist in a way that it's like watered down and like other people who are
mhm.
really deep in the space are asking for more. And when I was listening to this, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, this reminds me of the Harry Styles album because I feel like he is not going to the nth degree, the 11 that we were talking about in that review. But he is at least attempting a thing, right?
Attempting it more because I think that the production is there. Like
Yes.
two songs I think of are Prague, the guitars on
I
this
like Prague a lot.
reminded me of a Dijon song. You know,
Oh.
I know it's not your guy, but yeah, it reminded me of a Dijon song. Um, but then also it's like only thing holding him back is his vocals. I think the
Yes, I
production
agree.
on here, if it was a whole other artist, everyone would
It
love this
would
album.
kill. Yeah, I
It would
I
be an
agree.
amazing project. So to me, he's just taking what he has as far as he can take it. Robert Glasper is on here. You have Raven Lenae doing background vocals on My Winter.
Mhm.
Omar Apollo background vocals on Living Alone. So he's using his tools, whether it's other people, he's using the tools to kind of bring the best sound that he possibly can.
Yeah.
But you're right, he doesn't have what it takes to kind of take it all the way.
I think the first note I wrote down about this album and is become the overarching part of it is that Jack Harlow's artistry is now surpassing his body. Like his artistic idea, which I would say that Monica, just purely intellectually and like as a concept, is actually good. Like I will say that. I will say that out loud. The
Safe space, safe space.
the conceptualization of it, the features, the production, I'm like, that's actually good. But when it comes, and even when we'll talk about the songwriting in a second, I'm like, even when the songs are being written, I'm like, this is pretty solid. It's literally like his body. cannot produce the vocals
that are
to
needed.
that are needed for the songs. Yeah. Like it just
That's it. That's and you know it's so funny we came to the same place because if you know this podcast at all, this is like whatever the 40th time me and Demar have not talked about this podcast at all, this album at all,
Mhm.
and I've come to the same conclusion. But that is really the only not the only issue. There, I think there could be some songs that are more dynamic. But I think of a song like "Living Alone,"
Yeah,
and
that's
I'm
an
like,
Arlo Parks song, by the way. Arlo Parks all the way through.
I thought about Maxwell. I'm like, if Maxwell comes back and gives us new music, I could hear Maxwell on that. So I think there's a part of this album where the narrative, the online jokes, who he's a celebrity are overshadowing what the actual music is.
Yeah.
Because the actual music on here is very much what we hear a lot of people say they want to hear from artists in
Hmm.
terms of using live instruments, digging deeper into what they're thinking and feeling when we talk about the lyrics in a second. Like he's doing all the things that we are asking artists to do. And the one limitation is he can't really sing like that.
Yeah.
So
It's
I,
unfortunate, yeah.
it's unfortunate, but like, excuse me, I think that is the one pitfall here. Um, One last thing before we get into lyrics. I think that the main issue that I have with the production, is that I actually think he could have rapped more on this.
I
I know
agree.
that I know there were those were the rules and you
Which he
know,
didn't obey, by the way. Literally first
yeah,
song at the very
yeah,
beginning,
he's
I'm
he's
like,
kind of
that's
rapping on this, but
like this is
I
the first lyrics.
But I think I wish that he could have rapped on this more because I think that there is that side of like rap neo soul,
Yeah.
like Little Brother, Slum Village,
Smino.
Where I think he could have fit into that a little bit more. But I understand what he's going for here.
Yeah.
I only have one set of lyrics.
Here,
I
like
only have one.
I'll just connect what we're talking about here when it comes to Trading Spaces, right? Which I think I like that song. I think it's
Yep.
good. But you were talking about the rules that he had, when constructing this project. I'm like literally in the first, like the chorus, which is right at the top. He's like, all I want to do is get some time alone with you, the way you want to, baby girl. And then he's like, find somewhere that we can like. I mean, I can't even really say it. Just like say it. You almost kind of have to rap it, but it's like find somewhere that we can walk around together. See, cause I don't want you by yourself. You put up your hair and pick out what you want to wear. I'm coming. Won't you say the word? We can call it when you're ready. You're ready to show me what you really want to do. That part is rapped. Sounds great. Actually sounds phenomenal. When I was listening to this, it kind of reminded me low key, lowest of keys, Lauryn Hill a little bit. I was getting some Lauryn Hill vibes. I was getting Lauryn Hill vibes. And that is not outside. I don't feel like that's outside the sphere of what he is doing.
No, you're 100% right. I'm making jokes for those of you on YouTube see me cover my face. He's not wrong. And I think like for everyone who's probably gonna hear this album and hear this review after they've seen the jokes online, try and separate yourself
Yeah.
because this is really accurate in what Demar is saying of the Lauryn Hill comparison. I felt it on a couple of songs. On Lonesome in the chorus, this was a song where I was like, okay, that Jack Harlow songwriting that we liked a lot on
Hmm.
Jackman is still there. Like that, it hasn't disappeared because of this new style. He says in the chorus, "Want to see you stay, not be the one you moving on from. Giving my love up even though you want some. Sleeping on your own, huh? Staying to yourself, huh? Working on your own projects, touching on yourself, huh? Checking into hotels, making all your own money. Gotta walk away even though you're lonesome. Giving my love up even though you want some." Like that right there. First of all, this whole album is Loverboy Jack. Like
Yeah.
we saw Loverboy Jack a little bit on Come Home the Kids Miss You. Jackman does a little bit of that as well, even though it's less of that.
Hmm.
This is Loverboy Jack full fledged, like full blown. The last two lines really stand out to me because there's a vulnerability, of course, in his Loverboy lyrics that is not just yearning. It's almost the maturity of romance where you're like, we should do this or we can do this, but maybe let's not do this. He says, "Gotta walk away even though you're lonesome. Give him my love even though you want some." Like those are the kind of things that you're like, oh, Jack has grown up a little bit. You know, giving up the love that you still want, opposite of yearning. Yearning is like, I will die without it. I will do whatever. I will cross every bridge, every sea. So these are the kind of things where I'm like, I can see the maturity not just in what he's wearing, but actually in the lyrics as well. And then it's these kind of lyrics that I feel like are probably gonna get, under noticed
Hmm.
from this project. That is part of like we talk about his voice not being there. You don't really catch a lot of these lyrics the first time. Like it's very almost neo soul in that way. Like D'Angelo's one of my favorites. On YouTube you see his album behind me,
Hmm.
but D'Angelo's lyrics are almost, inaudible half the time.
Right.
So it is very neo soul in that way where you can't always understand what Jack is saying. But the writing is still there, and I want to give credit to the Four Rules because one of the things he said was no swearing. He didn't want it to be a crutch to kind of improve the writing. I think the writing is still there.
Yeah, I think so too. I think the lack of swearing does nothing. Like it doesn't change, it doesn't make it worse in any sort of way. I think that, sometimes when you do make a project, if you're an artist or any sort of you make any sort of project, and putting some sort of artificial constraint on yourself kind of helps because what if I write, like a poem where I keep using the same, I always use the letter R at the end of every stanza or something like that. You know what I mean? So it's just like a very interesting way to develop these ideas. And I thought it was pretty good. I thought that like, even all of my friends I don't really like as much.
Hmm.
But because there was a twofold reason. One reason is like when you hear Raven Lene on the song, you start to hear the difference in like singing ability. Like it's
Immediately.
you're like, oh, that's what this would have sounded like if somebody could sing.
Yep, yep.
Um, so that was kind of that was kind of a little bit of a drawback, but when it comes to the lyrics, I mean, he's like this song is basically about all of his friends kind of almost like making fun of him for like falling in love like too early, right? And he says this is on uh, let's do verse one. Actually, let's do verse two. He says, verse two, don't want to make it too vague. I found a way to move on. I gave my love into her because I hate that you're gone. I must have did it again. I must have waited too long. I must have struggled with giving you everything you want. I wasn't taking my time when I was taking you on. And what you say to me now, here goes that space that you want. I think you know who you are. That's why I made you this song. Don't want to make it too obvious, but maybe I'm wrong. So, all right, this is even him like, seesawing back and forth on the idea of like I don't want to like it's too vague or is it, like I don't know, like I don't know if it's too obvious or not, you know what I mean? So I like I like the concepts that he uses in these songs. Obviously, it's about love in a bunch of different ways, failure of love, even a song like My Winter, where it's like one person's my winter, one person's my summer. So there's
Hmm.
a lot of different spaces he's reaching into, but I think that the songwriting is good. Like we've been saying this since Jackman, where we're like, he is actually a good songwriter when it's not pop influenced. Like, because Jackman was just like a straight rap album, and then this is like a straight neo soul project, and the songwriting is still great. Like, so it's kind of hard to do that, spanning multiple genres, actually, if you really think about it. So, yeah, kudos to him. I just wanted to point that section out there.
I think this is actually good for his career in some way, even though he's getting clowned online. Because one thing I've said about artists in the 2020s is sometimes your fame or the pressure on your art can almost outpace where you are in your career.
Hmm.
So maybe you're not actually there yet as an artist, but everyone thinks you're some kind of genius.
Hmm.
And then now the pressure is on and anxiety sets in. Jack Harlow was like putting out this good work, improving as an artist, and no one's paying attention.
Yeah.
And so I think by the time that he people do pay attention, he will almost be so good that it'll work in his favor.
Okay.
Because I think if people realize how good Jackman was, this would might be a disappointment in a sense. because the Jackman was so good.
Hmm.
But I think because people were not sleep, were not hip to that, and they were thinking about Loving on Me instead of Jackman. It's like, oh, this is more like a side step from Loving on Me. But it's like he's now put out, a straight rap album, now a straight R&B soul, neo soul album, and has huge hits, and none from these albums.
Right.
And I think like most artists don't get to have that kind of arc. And so I think this actually helps his career in terms of he has all these great B-sides that he has, that will help build his fan base, and he gets to keep having these huge hits. So I'm interested to see like what Jack Harlow's set is like when he goes on tour because he has
That's true.
two albums of music that people may not want to hear. Good music, but they may not want to hear. So I think in the short term, the jokes are the jokes. We'll see it. We'll see how the sales are when those come in. But I think in the long term, this is good for his career.
Yeah, I think it's good for him. I think it's good for Jack Harlow, the artist. And I think it will probably be a little bit bad for Jack Harlow, the celebrity. Just because they're getting the jokes off crazy. Like it's going crazy right now. But I think for him as an artist, I think it just shows like real skill. Like I'm gonna say another name out here that's it's a little blasphemous. Is giving a little Mac Miller vibes right now. The
I
art
was,
the
you know,
artistic development is getting to a point where it's like, okay, I think the difference between him and Mac Miller at this point is Jack Harlow cannot sing.
or
Or
play
he's
instruments.
not good enough yet. Like,
Well,
yeah,
well, here's the thing, because I really thought of the Divine Feminine, but I
yeah.
didn't want to even, disparage Mac Miller's name by bringing that up. But I was exactly on the same page. This is his version of the Divine Feminine. Again,
Hmm.
can't sing as well. It hasn't been singing as long. Mac Miller was singing even on Kids. Their songs were singing on the
Yeah.
hook. And Mac Miller can play a bunch of instruments. I think those are the two different things here, but continue because you're 100% on the right track.
Yeah, so I think that ultimately, I think the next album that comes after this is gonna go nuts. I really think because what I think is gonna happen for him is like this is what I'm putting myself in the Jack Harlow mind right now. I had when I came out, first of all, I was underground, hammering away underground. What's popping? Then I was popping for basically two full album cycles. Everybody knows who I am. Then I decided I'm gonna go back to the craft, right? Penn Jackman. I'm gonna take an artistic expansion, put some rules on me. Again, this is like an artistic, almost like exercise for him, Monica, right? Put it together, I'm sure to him when he listens back to this album, it's like, yeah, everything works. But the one thing that we are seeing here is like his ability to sing is the only thing holding him back. Because if this album came out and it was like a Arlo Parks album, or we thought you even mentioned like a Maxwell or anybody like any neo soul R&B space type of person, if they had dropped this album with their ability to sing, this would actually be a killer album,
This is the
right?
Ari Lennox album.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. This would be a killer album. So I think going forward for him, he's like, okay, I'm just gonna do one of these. I'm just gonna take every bit and piece that I know that I'm good at and just smash them together on the next project. So I think that overall going forward, this is actually gonna be really good for him because I'm predicting at the end of this review for the next review is probably gonna be an 8 or 9 out of 10. I'm pretty sure.
I feel actually confident in what you're saying. I don't, I don't always want to give you your credit early on. I gotta wait to give you your credit. I'm gonna give you your credit early this one because I completely agree. The one thing I'll add to that before we talk about the cover
Hmm.
is that Jack knows how to make hits.
Yeah.
He mentioned in the interview that he's like, when I was underground, I was trying to make hits. Like I was learning how to make hits, figuring it out. We're at a point now where he is shown that he knows how to make hits. First, and also promote them. First Class, Loving on Me, What's Poppin'. He knows how to make hits.
Hmm.
So I think you add that like hit making quality to the stuff that you're talking about. We have a good album on our hands. We have an album that's gonna sell on our hands. And then as well, I do want to give him, the credit because he has this space that a lot of rappers don't do as much of, like the neo soul rap that he can do. Like
Yeah.
that, I think there's a space for that. He did a little bit on here, and maybe next time he leans more into the rap. But this is the rare time on a review where we say we want more raps.
Yeah.
Usually we're like too much raps, you're over rapping.
Hmm.
Here we I want more raps, and I like what you said about another voice on here. The song I thought about a lot with this album is "Too Much" by Drake and Sampha, and I'm
Ooh.
like that's a song Jack Harlow can make. You know,
Ooh.
like that's not outside of his purview. Maybe more soulful and less boom bap than that song is a
Hmm.
little bit, but those are the kind of songs I'm like, yeah, Jack Harlow has that in his repertoire. And we said this on, Come On the Kids Miss You, of like, is there going to be an artist who can kind of like join him in this space of
Oh,
doing these
okay.
kind of Drake-ish records? The last person we talked about who's close to this was Lotto. That's really it. So for now, he still keeps his name in that space.
Yeah, I think that what we're talking about, you mentioned Drake, and you mentioned Too Much is a Drake song. And in the past, we were talking about like you can just see the way he raps, what he raps about is very much in the Drake sphere, and obviously he was hanging out with Drake and stuff. So I think there is this Drake space that can exist for him because Drake, not the strongest singer, but can sing a little bit. That's all. Let's Can we all admit those two things are true?
Yes, yes.
Can we all, two things can be true at the same time. Not the greatest singer, but he's singing a little bit. And I think that I think that, Jack Harlow, not the greatest singer, but you can be trained. Okay. So I think that with training, just to escalate his singing and then to pile the rapping on top of it, I actually think will be huge for him. This melodic style of rapping that he was doing on Trading Places, uh, that can translate. You can move that forward to more songs, different albums, stuff like that. So that is a Drake space. I know he's trying to escape it, right? I know because I think he even said it on the podcast interview.
Mm.
I was trending it's trending in a Drake direction. You are a Drake disciple, whether or not whether or not you believe that to be true or whatever. Your artistic ability and your artistic like rhythm to the way you make art is a descendant of Drake. Like
Hmm.
it's very visible, even if you don't want it to, it still is. So I'm interested. I'm interested in him going forward. How do you feel about the cover?
I don't love the cover. I
No.
I I like where he was going with the blur. I actually like that on a cover. Like I think that works.
Hmm.
But I don't love this cover. And this is maybe like my personal taste of this wanting something different. But I think the whole change in his style, really I wanted more to be prevalent on the cover. Now you see him in that we
It's
call
him
it the
in the
most
hat.
deaf hat.
Yeah.
Um but I don't love the cover, but it's not a bad cover. I can't go as far to say it's a bad cover, but I personally don't love it.
I like the cover. I think, it kind of reminds me of some rap songs by Earl Sweatshirt. A little bit,
Okay.
yeah, it's a little bit less distorted, but it's similar in that fashion. And it definitely kind of reinforces, like, it's all brown, like all shades of brown, even as obviously he's white, but he has a
Hmm.
sandy skin complexion, at least in the photo, right? So there's even like a more muted element to the cover versus everything else that he's ever done. So I actually like the cover. I think it reflects the album pretty nicely. Do you think it's a no skips?
It's a soft skip.
I agree.
It's a soft
It's a
skip
soft
because
skip.
I think that there is a point where it feels like one long song,
Hmm.
and it kind of blends together. But yeah, this is an album you can run front to back very easily. Like
Yeah,
I probably listened to this album in full by accident a couple times.
I agree.
So maybe it's more like a real no skip, and we're just being picky, but it's at minimum a soft skip.
Yeah, I agree with Soft Skip. I was just thinking it would be so funny. You know who would fit on this project? Again, a song like My Winter, No Name. And she would never do it in a
Ooh.
million gazillion years off the principle. She's like, wait, you want me to make a neo soul song with a white man?
Never say never, man. Listen, that's why I mentioned all the help he has on this.
Yeah.
He has some of, again, Robert Glasper, Raven Lenae, Omar Apollo. So some people that have a problem with this and they hopped on. So I don't know. I think it could happen. Never say
Yeah.
never.
So we'll see in that respect. So I think it's a soft skip. Do you think it's an album cop or yeah, vinyl cop?
Mm,
Wow.
I don't know. Like, I really like the production on here. The
Hmm.
production is so warm on so many of these songs.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
It might be. Here's the thing.
That
I think it actually is a
loungy,
vinyl cop. I think
jazzy.
it's a vinyl cop.
Wow.
Just
Okay.
off the sound. I don't think
Okay.
it's that quality of album. Again, if you're on the podcast, hop over to YouTube. We got Cleo Soul and D'Angelo on one side. We got Prince and Jay-Z on the other side. So I don't know if it's in that group, but
Hmm.
off the Sonics alone, I think it's a vinyl cop.
Okay, I'm gonna say no, it's not a vinyl cop for me, but I can see where you're coming from. I'm not upset with your rationale. Okay, the moment everybody has been waiting for. Adriel,
Hmm.
what is your score for Jack Harlow's Monica?
Oh man, I hate to say it, but I think I'm gonna go with a seven.
Wow.
This album is good, man. Like here's the thing: if he could sing, this
It
would be
would
an
be
eight.
great. Yeah, it would
If
be a
he could
good,
sing, this
really
would be an
good.
eight. Like I think for someone to be so vocally limited and get a seven tells you how much we think about this project.
Hmm.
But for me, this is a seven. The production is actually great. Like I think the production is underrated. It hasn't even been a week yet, but already underrated.
Hmm.
His writing on here, like I think that people take the Drake comparisons almost as a slight. And no, Drake is one of the greatest writers, in the history of music. Jack Harlow is I don't think is that, but he has shown album after album that he is a very talented writer. And then we didn't talk about it in terms of the aesthetic of this project, the cohesiveness. Like one of the
Very
most
high.
cohesive projects that we've had this whole year on album mode so far.
Yeah, it
So
feels like you're in a jazz lounge.
100%. So to me, this is a seven. And I think what makes this album so good to me, and it's funny, it reminds me of the Lil Yachty album years ago. Let's Start Here. I think this is a little bit better than the Lil Yachty album. But you would not think this is Jack Harlow. Like if you put this on, someone will be like, "Who is that?" And you got to be like, "Oh, that's Jack." And I
Hmm.
think having an album that is good that fits that is very, very rare because I think when you think what Jack Harlow sounds like, nowhere do you think about this project. So it's a seven for me only because he can't really sing.
Wow, that's Jack. He's a one name type of artist now.
Jackman.
Okay. So for me, Jack Harlow's Monica, I think this is a six. I might even say a 5.5. But here's the thing. I think the songwriting is good. Not the greatest, but it's good. I think the production is good. Very cohesive. I think his rapping is solid. I just think he is just overstretched in trying to sing in any capacity. And that's not even like, trying to be a dickhead. I'm just like, you are not
It's
good
true.
enough of a singer to actually fully reach, to fully realize your ideas. Like, I think the ideas are good. And like I said, like, your artistry is now surpassing your body. Like, it is now
Hmm.
surpassed your ability to actually do these things. Whereas, like, if you wrote this song for an Arlo Parks or a Maxwell or a No Name or something like that, then we'd be like, oh my God, that's such an amazing song, right? But he's doing it himself, so he also has to sing these portions, and I'm like, you're not there yet. You're just not there yet, singing wise. But 2 years from now, when when he's gone through lessons with his singing coach, then we're talking. I really think that. Like I really think that. I think his next album is gonna be crazy. I think it's gonna be really good because going through two cycles without having a hit, but being acclaimed or you're seeing your artistic abilities stretch in a positive way, there's gonna be that itch to be like, okay, now let me just hammer them with everything. You know what I mean? Let me just hammer them with the hit song. Then I'm gonna start singing and be like, oh, the singing is better, and then the songwriting, I'm gonna pull that in, and then I'm gonna have and then I'm gonna have this, and I'm gonna have that, and I'm gonna have this person and that person. I'm telling you that's gonna happen. I know that's gonna happen. That's just like from a person to person, level. You know what I mean? So
I
that
listen.
go ahead.
No, I'm here with you. I think his next work will be his best work.
Yeah.
Okay, you know how the phrase goes. I'm very interested to see how people feel about this project, the music itself. One thing that I think is so interesting about listening to this album is that the album as a full listen is a great passive listen, very enjoyable, warm kind of background, like cleaning the kitchen, cleaning on a Sunday type of music.
Mhm.
It's almost when you have the active listen and you go, okay, he can't really sing.
Yeah.
And and that happens very quickly.
But he can
But
rap though. The rapping
but
parts
he
are
can
good.
he can really rap, and I think why I think this album is actually going to age better than people realize is because this is the celebrity part of Jack Harlow. I
Hmm.
think another artist who's not as big a celebrity isn't getting that active listen and active criticism. I
Okay.
think another artist who's either new or just on the come up, you just like, oh my, it's vibes. I don't care if they can't sing, it's vibes.
Yeah, the vibes are great.
You
That's
know,
true.
and I think like the vibes are good on this project. It's just like this boisterous white boy who we were mad about 2 years ago is now trying to sing. How dare he? And I think there's that kind of feeling when you even listen to the music itself. So once that dissipates a little bit, I think the album will age pretty well. I want to know what everyone thinks in the comments. Okay, Spotify, you can leave comments now. YouTube, like, subscribe, leave us a comment. Am I too high with a 7? Is Démar just right with a 6? Because 6 also feels like a great score here. It's
Hmm.
above average. It's a good album. Not great, but good music on here. Make sure you guys find us on the interwebs, okay? Album Mode Pod on X, Album Mode Pod on Instagram, Album Mode Pod on TikTok. And of course, until next time, know yourself, know your worth.
Later days.